Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Filling Your Cup. I'm your host, David.
Your other host, Calvin. What's up?
Yo, and today, right now, for this episode, we're gonna talk about Uber and Lyft don't want to make California drivers employees, so they're on the verge of shutting down. Big, I think it's like a pretty big story because in California, well, I'm gonna just say in California, I think Lyft and Uber it's really is a pretty pivotal part of our economy, right? Like everybody uses that service. Now, I mean, me and you use it often Corona. So this is like a pretty big story, right? What's your take on it? How do you feel about California wanting Uber and Lyft to make their employees make their drivers employees versus contractors?
Uh, I think it's a good move. I think it's a good move because, a lot of these employees or a lot of these drivers are, working around the clock, working for like depending on the ride, they may be working for below minimum wage, no benefits, no pay, no sick leave. They are to get the coronavirus. They don't get income. They don't get paid by the employer, which is Uber or Lyft, and that's ethically that's doesn't it's not doesn't bode well.
Okay.
What about you?
I think it's a really bad move because in strictly business sense, Uber and Lyft, they can't afford to pay the drivers as employee minimum. Well, I'm not gonna say they can't, but I'm saying I don't know like what's the I think like after you factoring all the costs, right? The cost per ride, and like they say like after the for 1 hour of work, I think your average is it comes down to like $25 of like a take home pay. But that doesn't include the wear and tear on the car. It doesn't include like gas. Doesn't include maintenance, right? So after you do all the deduction, technically you could make less than minimum wage, right? Right. That's the issue we're talking about here. But then the other issue is right now these ride sharing companies, they're not making money right now. They're not profitable even with the current pay model, right? So if you want them to pay the employees more, or you want to pay the drivers more, then it's gonna cut even more into the bottom line, right? So if they're not making a profit now, when they're not paying employees at a minimum wage, then how can they afford to pay them as employees? That's my concern. It's like they can't afford to pay them as a contractor right now, really, because they're paying them because you're getting a cut, right? You get like 80% of the cut, right? But then like if that's not enough to earn more than minimum wage, if you force the Lyft and Uber to pay them a minimum wage, then they're gonna go out of business because they're gonna burn through all the cash because they don't make enough. It's not feasible for them to pay them
Right.
at a minimum wage, and that's just minimum wage. You talk about benefits too, right? So I don't know how it's gonna work. Like I just don't see it. I don't see it happening. It's not like I don't want it to happen, but it's just I don't see it happening because the money's gotta come from somewhere, and it's not coming from the rides. It's not enough. So
Yeah. I know. I mean, business sense is not. It's not if their costs are more than the revenue.
yeah, if you spend more than what you take home, you kinda in the wrong business. You're not making money.
Yeah. So I mean, I guess in California, in the Bay Area, in LA area, we've grown so accustomed to the ride sharing that
So count. So like right
yeah.
now, right? California is or SF is, I think SF is like the city who's kind of mandating it. So I think they mandate they gave them 10 days to comply, basically, to make all their drivers employees, which is not going to happen. I believe they extended that because Uber and Lyft said they're just going to stop operating in California, and that's even worse, right? You stop operating California like
Right.
highest tax state, and if you lose this piece of revenue, I don't know. I mean, I don't think they can afford to lose this piece of revenue because every state need all the money they can get, and I don't think so. I think California did the right thing, or San Francisco did. They extended they extended the proposal. So right now, I think they have until like November to discuss. But I don't see this happening because like I said, like you can't. There's not enough money to go around to all the drivers. So that's kind of like what I like that's kind of like the in the strictly business sense, right? It's not feasible to pay the workers more, but of course you want to pay the workers more, but it's just like, oh yeah, my question was, are you willing to pay more for your ride? So right now, like when I a ride from
Right.
my house to downtown, right, it's roughly like 10 to 15 minutes, right? That non-rush hour, it costs me around like almost $20. If I take a bus, it takes an hour. It takes an hour, and it probably costs me well,
Five
I have a
bucks.
monthly pass, but it costs like what was it, $3 a ride.
$3.
So $3 for an hour, or you pay like $15 for 15 minutes. That's kind of like
Yeah.
that's a pricing option right now, right? So imagine, so would you be willing to pay $30, $40? That's kind of what it is. Like you have to increase the only the only way to give your pay employees more or contract more is if you increase the price you charge, right? That's kind of like common sense. That's kind of like economy 101, right? So are you willing to pay more? Are you willing to pay more for that service in order for them to make them employees?
Well, it's a good question too. Um, I think let's backtrack for a little bit. Of course, the company's not going to pay for it. They're going to make us pay for it, right? By raising the fare hikes and things like that. So we get the hit, we get the bill in that regard. So will I pay for it personally for $40 to go to downtown, which takes me like $3 for a public transportation? Probably
Well,
not.
okay, that's assuming the daytime, but at nighttime you might want to pay that, right? Because you don't want to ride a you don't really who really want to, if you're going out of the home, is like who wants to ride a bus to the club? So it's kind of like you're gonna want to pay. So the thing is like you might pay that once in a while, but then it's gonna really stop you from doing it often, right? Because usually we ride Lyft and Uber pretty often because it's like relatively cheap and it's safe, right? Because we don't need. We're not saying we drink, but I'm saying like no, when we go out, we like to get chauffeur, right? So we're willing to pay like $20 to go, but $40 is like it's kind of like into the steep level, right? Like $20, that's kind of steep, right? And that's kind of like I feel like that's kind of like how much you have to pay in order to like make this feasible. Like you have in order to make employees. So
Right, and it's good to not. It's good to have an option to pay $40 too, if you know, for emergency situations.
oh, so how about this? How about this? You know how like a lot of people complain that like, oh, like Warren Buffett, right? Like, oh, I don't pay enough taxes. I pay less tax than my employees. Like, how about like this? There's an option where you can pay the drivers more. But isn't that tips though? Isn't that what tips is for?
It
Because
is.
my point was like Warren Buffett can cut like a fatter check to the government. Be like, hey, oh, you didn't tax me enough, right? You only tax me. What was it like? He claimed that you can only get taxed like 15%. How about you cut a check for the other 20% that you got paid in stock option base, huh? How about that? Hey, money talks, man, and sometimes you got to put your money where your mouth is, right? Kind of what it is, man. So like, I mean, I
Right.
guess that's where tips come in. That's where tips come in, right? You tip your driver for, I don't know, like how much Lyft. So do you know like Lyft and Uber? Do they take a money? Do they take a cut of the tips or no?
Not sure. I think it's just the base fare.
Okay,
Tips probably goes directly to them, but
so to the drivers. Okay, so you could technically tip the drivers more if but that still doesn't. I mean, that's not the point, though, right? The point is not just about making more money. It's the point about is making them employees, so they get health benefits, health
it's
insurance,
sick leave.
sick leave. Yes, like I don't know, man. Like, of course, I want everybody to be able to get protection. Like protection is key, right? You want to get protected from like all these like I don't know unforeseen events that can happen, but I just don't see it, man. I don't see it happening because the money is not there, man. The money is just not there. Like if you think about it, like let me paint the picture. Like if they're not making money now, when they're not paying them as employees, and they're losing money. I'm saying they're losing money now. What makes them want to like convert all the drivers into employees and pay them as like an employee, and then at like the current pay structure, right? So I guess what it could work is they technically could turn them to employees, but just charge more for the ride. But then
They
that's kind of
probably
like they're not incentivized to do that. You know why? Because right now they're contract drivers because they can drive whenever they want. You can wake up, drive. So if you make them contractor, if you make them employees, that means they have to show up at show up at 8, leave at 9, and then like what if? How does that work? Like how do you like are you just like I guess right now it kind of works because their app kind of schedule all the rides, right? Like you see what's open and they just fill the slot. So I guess they can just keep the same model, but it's just kind of like you lose that flexibility as a driver too, right? You can't just do whatever you can't just drive whenever you want. You just like a set time now, right? And it's like,
right.
and I think to me the idea of a ride sharing like Uber and Lyft is not an end to a means, but it's like a means to an end. So you work this now to just pay the bills, whatever bills it is. You're technically you're not really making money because like if you count in like the depreciation on your car, the insurance, the maintenance, you're technically losing money, but you don't physically see that. But until you get to that point where it's a service your card, then you're like, oh, I have to pay for this, and it's from like my Uber money. So I think we have to they have to keep this model where it's contractor, but maybe Uber and Lyft can like provide their employees with like a stipend for maintenance, like help them with the maintenance, and then like give them a stipend. I mean, they do give them like perks for like driving X amount of mileage, driving X amount of hours in a week, but like maybe have like a service center where they can just come in and service the car for free or something. I think that is something that they can do. Uber and Lyft can they hire their own like mechanics. They know how much they charge them. They know how much they pay them. Like they have all like the logistics on that. Maybe just service the cars for employees for free. I think that's like a good start. Because right now I feel like employees get nothing out of it. They get all the risk, which is they're driving the car, they're using their own insurance, they're using everything of their own, and they get nothing out of it, which is kind of like bullshit, right? Pardon my French. Like
Yeah.
it's kind of bullshit because they take in all the liability, but none of the benefits really. Yes, you can say they're getting paid, but technically they're getting paid less than minimum wage, depending on which state you live in, right? Like in California, I mean SF, the minimum wage here is like what, $16, $16.50?
15 something.
15 something. But it's different state by state, right? So some states it's $7. I mean, yes, of course, cost of living varies, but then like it doesn't vary by that much. And end of the day, I think almost drivers are making less than minimum wage. So depending on the rides though, maybe like you make more money on short rides. Like my 15-minute ride, it costs like $20, but the same ride to the airport costs maybe like $30 only. But it's like 20 like 5-minute ride. But it's like it's different though. I mean, it's different logistics, right? You're driving on the highway to go to the airport, but then like for my ride is basically all local, so it's like maybe this I don't know like how much it costs if you like stop often for like stoplights versus like one way just on the freeway. I mean, there's logistics for that too, but like I mean, I don't think it varies that much, but in a day, they're not. I think they're making less than minimum wage. Like just all drivers are making less than minimum wage. And sometimes, yeah, you come home and you're like, yo, I'm averaging $28 an hour. But yeah, but it doesn't factor in all the maintenance, right? So I think what Uber and Lyft can do is like I said, have a service center to service employees' cars, because then that is a factor they can control. They can control how much, because they know how much they're gonna pay their what do you call those auto work
Technician,
no, what do you call those workers?
car maintenance
Yeah,
guy.
the car maintenance guys, right? They know how much that's they pay them by hours, or they know how much it costs. So I think that's the one thing they can do for the drivers. I know that's not the answer, but at least I think they have to offer that service, because right now the drivers are literally they're getting no benefits, and they're making money for Uber. Technically, they're not making money, because they're losing money, but they're still their workers in a sense. So that's kind of like my take on it.
Yeah, good take, but good take. Going back to your maintenance idea, good idea. Definitely cut down the overhead costs for the drivers. But that does not address how the benefits.
Elephant in the room, right? The elephant in the room is the benefits, right?
the health
Mhm.
concern,
Mhm.
sick leave. Yeah, benefits, benefits,
However,
benefits, benefits.
what about this though? Uber said we're gonna stop operating in California. Uber and Lyft said we're
Hmm.
gonna stop operating in California. So it's either like
Yeah,
you want some jobs, you want no jobs. That's kind of like what it comes down to at this point. There's no,
exactly.
there's no pool right now for there's no leverage for California. So unless California comes out and say like, hey, if we make them employees, we'll subsidize part of the income and stuff. But then that means the taxpayer pays that now. So is like
Yeah,
is Uber and Lyft is gonna be like a government? Are they gonna be like a government government agency as well? I mean like government owned company or something like. So it's kind of like I don't see a solution to this though. I just don't. There's just not enough money to go around.
there's not, and I bet some of the politicians took Uber to their jobs too.
Wait,
Uber and Lyft.
what would you say?
The politicians, they do take Uber and Lyft to
Oh,
their work.
oh, good.
You
I mean, but I mean, it's a great service, right? It's a great service, but like you said, like over like to say if like this pandemic, right? A lot of people are not working, right? A lot of people definitely not working. A lot of people definitely not driving for Uber and Lyft because like they can't.
no,
Luckily, they can because normally you cannot claim as like a self-employed worker because that's what they are, contractors. They're self-employed. You
yeah,
cannot claim unemployment insurance. But luckily, right now, like they allow it, like since for COVID. So that's like the only thing that's kind of like subsidizing like their cost of living. So yeah, like I like imagine that if Uber has to pay out unemployment to all the contract workers, that's another
go
thing.
there.
That's another thing to think about, right? So everybody just can't work. Like they literally just can't work, and then that's a big that's a fatty bill from Uber and Lyft that they have to pay out. If all the drivers were all employees as well. So I think that's something else they're thinking about as well. Like they're like, hey, this COVID kind of showed us like, hey, we really can't make you guys employees. That's I mean that sucks. As much as that sucks, like that's kind of how business is, right? That's just how business is, right? It's a business.
Yes. Yeah, imagine like if Nike or wanted to make shoes in America, they're not going to make any money because they have to
Well,
pay all
well,
the minimum
well,
wage.
well, the thing is, okay. The thing is, you can make these arguments is if there's a lot of support for it. So if there's like a lot of support, people saying like, hey, make Uber and Lyft driver employees, then you're like, okay. So are you willing to pay like $40-$50 per ride versus when it usually costs you $20? That's the same concept with Nike though, right? So people who say like, hey, you have to bring the manufacturing jobs back here. Are you willing to pay right now like Nike's charging you could argue that like Nike's margin is probably like 30 to 40%, maybe even more on per shoe.
For sure, yeah.
For each dollar they make 40 cents, right? So you could argue that maybe Nike can make less margin, like maybe they can make 20% margin instead. Like so for each dollar they make 20 cents on a dollar. But then it's kind of like what's their incentive? What's their incentive to do that? What's Nike incentive, right? It's a business, right? They want to like maximize profit with the minimal cost, and that's kind of like what it is. So like if you tell if Nike if like Nike if you want Nike to like bring back manufacturing here, you're gonna have to pay probably like so right now a pair of Jordans. This is say one of those like regular Jordans, like not the special ones, right? The special ones can go for thousands, right? Let's just say a regular Jordan, like a regular Jordan. It's
Like
like
what?
$200 right now. $200 right now, right?
$200, yeah.
Are you willing to pay $400 for that pair of Jordans?
Mm, not for the regular ones.
Yeah, right. Like you're not gonna pay $400 for a shoe. It might even cost more than 400 because like I don't. It might even cost more than 400, but like are you willing to pay that? Because like the cost of living. I mean, the cost for making these shoes in these like third world countries, it's like pennies. It's like not pennies, but it might cost $2 to make the pair of shoe, right? But in America, it probably costs more than $2.
Yeah,
I don't.
for sure.
I mean, we don't know exactly how much it costs to manufacture the shoe, how much labor costs there, but it's gonna cost a lot more here because you have to pay all the workers all the benefits.
Yeah,
So,
same with.
full circle, right? So my point is, there's just not enough money, man. There's just not enough money. Like this, like I don't think this job, like Uber and Lyft, I don't think this job is meant to really support a family. It's kind of like like a service worker job, like a McDonald's or just fast food. Okay, I'm not gonna say that because like In and Out, they pay their employees well. Like the managers there can make more than six figures easy. The managers there, well, you can make more than six figures. But even the cooks there, they start off at like $2 to $3 more above minimum wage. But the thing is like minimum wage is not a good indicator of like it's different from a living wage. A minimum wage is just a floor of how much the minimum you can pay someone. A living wage is different. So the minimum wage could be like just say $16 in SF, but to be realistically, a living wage in SF is probably like $20 to $30. It's kind of what it is. Like you need to make that much in order to live in SF, like $30. But minimum wage is like $15. So like there's still discrepancies there. Like living wage and a minimum wage is totally different. So, but even that, right? They can't even pay a minimum wage, which is like maybe like half of what the actual living wage it takes. So it's baffling, but like I don't think that's like a job where you support a family on. That's kind of like a stepping stone. It's a stepping stone into like your next career path, right? That's the good. Yeah. But right now, we can talk about the employment and like economic issues in like another video. We don't want to drag this video too long. I mean, but then like the end of the day is like how how I see it is like there's a lot of people, there's a lot of workers, there's a lot of available workers, especially like right now. A lot of the older workers, they're not retiring because they can't afford to. So that's a problem, right? But the thing is like I feel like we have less supply and demand, right? We have less jobs than what we have for workers. So we have too many workers and too little jobs. And a lot of these jobs are not jobs where you can support a family. So that's a problem too. So let's just say if there's 100 jobs, I'm gonna say 60, maybe 50 to 60 jobs can support a family, support a family. But I'm saying like as like an individual, like not dual income, like just individually, maybe 60% of the job can support a family. Of the other 40, you probably need dual income to support a family, which is not saying much, right? Because like let's say if you make like 50K a year, two jobs, you make 100K a year. Yeah, it sounds a lot, but that's feeding two people. Plus, if you have children, right? It's not feasible. So I guess we're kind of disconnected with the job market because I personally I feel like there's not enough jobs. There's not enough good paying jobs, and there's too many workers because every day, I don't know how many people are born, but there's a lot of people. And every day, there's people entering into the workforce, right? But right now, what COVID's kind of showing us, we're losing jobs. Gaining workers. So that's kind of like an issue we're heading towards too. And I think it might be a really big talking point for the upcoming elections because I think employment is going to be a really big thing, right? Because if you don't have a job, you can't feed your family. And if you can't feed your family, that's when mayhem happens. So yeah, before we close out the video, any thoughts, Calvin, on just I guess closing thoughts?
No, I mean, yeah, it's like you said, it's not feasible for any business model to kind of go through what Uber and Lyft is going through, making a fair living wage without either increasing the price hikes for a ride or things like that. So whether they're gonna do it or not, remains to be seen. I'm excited to hear what they're gonna do. I mean, I definitely think, and I definitely think Uber and Lyft should stay in California. I definitely take advantage of Uber and Lyft, and it's a good option to have. In general for our convenience and for our transportation. So, I want both. I want everything, right? I want the workers to be kind of treated fairly, but I want Uber and Lyft to kind of stay so we could take advantage of the ride shares too.
Right. I mean, as worst comes to worst, is everything just remains the same, right? They still contract their workers, and we keep Uber. I think that's like the worst. I mean, I think at minimum we keep it because I don't think California can afford to lose out on this job. Because right now, jobs is crucial, and I mean, you need every job you can get. So
yeah, and that's what the appeal is for working for Uber and Lyft too. Is flexible hours. You could just wake up, turn on your phone, and start working. And when you lose that to like the kind of the structured 8-hour shifts of a employee, then that loses
And it's
kind
hard,
of
right? It's hard to micromanage that because the
yeah,
contractors they're on the road. Like you're not in the
yeah,
office, you can't see their productivity. I mean, of course you can. You like, hey, 1 hour you driven twice,
yeah,
right? Each like how you justify paying someone? I'm not saying workers are gonna do that. I'm saying, but it's like there's a lot more logistic that goes into this. Like you have to track all that, right?
yeah.
Comes to everything is a business. Every number counts. Every number counts. So yeah, so I think we're gonna just close the video. I think we can both agree that we both want we would like to see them become employees, but we probably won't see that happen because it's just not feasible. And I'm a big supporter of the ride sharing service because it brought definitely both of us a lot of convenience, and I'm sure a lot of people like it's like driving in the city, especially like where we live, San Francisco is crazy. Like there's literally no parking now. Now there might be a little bit more parking due to COVID, but still no parking, and it's yeah, it's super convenient, and especially for people who commute to work every day. It's
Yeah.
so yeah. And saying that, I know this video feels a little long. Whoops, it is what it is. We gave you a long video. Deal with it. So yeah. Until next time. Stay safe. Stay
Like,
comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and let us know how we can do better. And see you guys next time. Peace.
and that's not base.